Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining me for this, our first keynote interview of the day. Very pleased to say that Luca Bertolot and Baudouin Derek are our keynote speakers. Thank you, Luca and Baudouin, for the opportunity to talk to you. I'm sure most of the people in this market know exactly who you both are, and if they don't, then I wonder just what they've been doing in the last couple of years. But just in case, why don't you both quickly introduce yourselves to the audience? Luca.
Thank you very much, Toby. Good morning to everyone. It's a great pleasure to see you and meeting you virtually. I'm Luca Bertolot. I have the pleasure to run the European Covered Bond Council in Brussels. Let's say the intelligence service of the covered bond industry, helping the covered bond industry to work smoothly and secure that the market will be here also in 250 years.
Thank you, Luca. Baudouin?
Yeah, Baudouin Derek. So in my free time involved in the European Covered Bond Council at the moment as a chairman. Still looking forward to be able to chair my first physical meeting, but that's how it is. And besides that, working at BNP Paribas as head of ABS markets.
Super, thank you very much. Well, Luca, let's start with the news. We have a new European Commissioner in charge of financial services, financial stability and the Capital Markets Union, Mairead McGuinness, taking over from Mr. Dombrovskis. So, Luca, how do you think this will change things in the short and medium term?
Well, that was the main discussion yesterday in the steering committee. I mean, the replacement of ex-executive Vice President Dombrovskis is an important news for the market. Of course, is a reshuffling of the European Commission. And we think that this can have an impact also in the structure of the DG FISMA in charge of financial services. So we are very much looking forward and following all the movement that this can cause. I think also this is a very important changes because it's in the middle of the most important crisis of at global level, I would say, for one of the key sector of the European Commission. So we are very much activating all our, I would say, channel of communication to have a good understanding of what are the implications. And the steering committee yesterday has been properly briefed, and we are setting down the strategies to make sure that the European Commission will be able to continue to have a very constructive approach to our key dossier, covered bonds, for example, now in full implementation, but also energy efficiency mortgages or European secured notes. All these dossiers have to continue under the new Irish mandate, and we will make sure that we will be very visible with the cabinet also in the coming months. Okay,
well, we'll have to get used to a new broom in charge, I guess, but fingers crossed. Luca, just moving on slightly from the Commission, but and moving to the sort of the crisis that we have. You know, they say that the most dangerous words in the financial markets are, but this time it's different. Covered bonds proved themselves in the 2007 and 2008 crisis, both during the crisis and funding the recovery, and seem to be proving resilient once again in the COVID crisis. Is it the same this time, or is it different?
Well, I think it is not the first crisis for the covered bond market. I mean, the covered bond product has been able, over the years, over the centuries, to always adapt to new market conditions. I think that's the secret of this asset class. And it has been always able to work as a community and trying to adapt to the new changes. And I think that this crisis is a bit the mother of all crises, in the sense that in the history, we have never seen such a global crisis. We can speak about a shock on the supply side and demand side at the same time in most of the region of the globe. So I think that we are in front of an unprecedented scenarios, and it's difficult to have a map. We are really navigating in uncharted waters. What are the good news? Well, the good news is that we have a very good instrument that proved in the history to be able to cope with the previous crisis. Most probably will be able also to cope with this one. What we have to do, I think that as a community, we have to maximize the opportunity to exchange opinions, to see what's going on. And I think this conference is also one of these places where exactly after the summer break, we want to exchange and understand what's going on. we need to have an instant way of exchanging views and assessing the impact into the market. I think that's our job. No one of us has the crystal ball. Crises are also an accelerators of changes. They are never a negative element in the society. I mean, even the Black Plague has provided a massive changes in the society. The labor market change and the renaissance, if you want, came from that terrible crisis. So we have to take the good aspect of this crisis, enjoy the time that we are spending at home. We are all working from home in this moment. And I think it's our responsibility to redesign this industry, make sure that we will be able to be an element of reconstruction and recovery for our society.
Thank you, Luca. Baudouin, keen to bring you in here. In the markets, the closest alternative to covered bonds traditionally are agencies and supranational borrowers. Thanks to COVID, there will be clearly a huge increase in the issuance of supra and agency debt. The EU alone is set to borrow over 500 billion euros more. How do you think will that affect the covered bond market?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, on the one hand, historically, there has indeed always been a clear link in terms of spread levels between the SSA sovereign spreads in a certain country and the covered bond market. Historically, always being the covered bond being a premium over SSA or sovereign spreads. Even though that in the previous crisis we already saw in certain countries that the covered bond spreads managed to price inside certain sovereigns, because that was basically with concern about sovereign risk, while covered bonds with the double recourse was perceived as a low risk instrument. At the moment, you could say, well, on the one hand, yes, there would be more increase in volumes and more supply, but that we haven't seen that yet. That's something that will spread over time. And also, it would only have an impact if suddenly a sovereign spread would hike a lot. And then, of course, the cover, if suddenly saying, well, the French sovereign spread would go up, then indeed it's difficult that cover bond spreads would remain the same. But at the moment, what we see is there's still a lot of redemption coming in. So there's a lot of investor demand. There's not too much supply being expected, so there's still a structural undersupply, and hence we expected, especially in the near term, the spreads to be supported and maybe even tightened in that respect. And you also saw that already on the, for example, the non-European jurisdiction SMBC from Japan we issued at a very low spread level for the first time negative, and with new investors coming in. So at the short term, I'm not concerned at all about the performance of covered bonds.
Okay. This question to both of you, actually. One of the reasons that the covered bond market proved so robust last time was that it had developed effective tools to cope with stressed housing markets. But this time, the biggest stress seems to be on Europe's smaller businesses. But loans to them aren't eligible for cover pools. Can covered bond technology do anything to help the SME sector?
You want to start? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, then go ahead.
No, I think a traditional cover bond product, as we support it in the ECBC, indeed is mortgages, residential mortgages, commercial mortgages, and public sector. Afterwards, you could say, well, the aircraft has been an ongoing discussion. This is a different asset class. So it's SMEs, it's businesses, not retail. So indeed, it's a different asset class, but it's definitely an asset class which is important to support the economy and to support the economy in a different way than the housing market. But it's a key one, and indeed the key one during this crisis. So in that respect, the tools that we traditionally use for covered bonds, including double recourse and doing separate and getting access over the assets on top of the counterparty risk, that's definitely something which should work also to fund the SME sector. And that's something we, as European Common Council, EMF, have been working on jointly and advising also the regulators for a while in terms of initiative with the task force we have with the European secured notes. which was set up some years ago, is now again very much reactivated with renewed interest from the Commission as well, in terms of to see how we can help using the knowledge and techniques we have in the cover market to see if we can think about a product which will be separate or besides the cover bond, traditional cover bonds, could be used to fund SMEs and that sector in certain countries. In certain countries, there's more need for it than in others because of existing ways that are funded, because of the existing levels also. But there's definitely a need in certain countries, and there's definitely a willingness also at the European level in Brussels to see how that can be further developed and further supported. So as an ECB, we continue to have that dialogue and provide input to regulators and to the market in that respect.
Thank you, Luca.
Well, allow me to say that first of all, the covered bonds are anyhow helping the real economy quite importantly with the housing market. Also, in the portfolio of our banks, we have commercial loans, which are playing an important role in supporting the economy. So covered bonds are a fundamental element, I would say, of the recovery plan per se. SME is for sure the crucial element of this recovery, and access to the banking sector for SME it's a key element. When it's the news, and if we read the news in some countries during these days, there is also the risk that the SME will look not at the banks and some illegal entities to look for money. So I mean, there is a desperate urgency to do something immediately for the SME sector, which is the most fragile sector. In the ECBC, we are proposing a medium-long-term solution to facilitate, I will say, access to the banking sector for SME, and most probably in 2-3 years' time. We are proposing to the European Commission an exit strategy. We want to assess very carefully pro and cons, this for the covered bond industry, but we have a very efficient mechanism which could potentially be of help for the Union. And this is important for Europe, of course. I mean, the European Commission is part of our task force on ESN, like the European Investment Bank, like the EBRD. They are all involved in our activities. But also this can be a benchmark for non-European countries. We had similar debates in Singapore, in Malaysia, and in other countries. So I think that we will assess what is the best way to move forward. This has been discussed yesterday in the steering committee, and the task force moderated now by Stefano Patruno will be leading this discussion with a medium-long-term aspect to produce a solution in a couple of years' time.
Thank you. Again, this question to both. The EMF-ECBC has long been a pioneer of energy-efficient mortgages and their funding. 6 months ago, climate change was the #1 priority in Brussels. But has the COVID crisis brought about a hiatus with this, whilst we deal with the more immediate problems, or has it irrevocably changed the nature of the Green Initiative?
Yeah, I would say it's still priority #1 in terms of going on the long term. Of course, COVID is the short-term priority in that respect. But what you see is that in a lot of countries and a lot of initiatives, people try to link it to say, okay, yeah, if we put money, spend money or budget on COVID remediations or help recover the economy. Often they try to link it directly with energy efficient. So I think it almost goes hand in hand, and I think the energy efficient and environmental, and even you could incorporate also the social aspect, health sector. I think everything like that will continue to be the focus, and we see it as ECBC, but also internally I see it. That focus is there, and it will only strengthen more and more. Maybe on the short term, people will say, okay, we need to use more plastic, more disposables, but that's really the short term. I think in the end, the whole energy efficient and environmental initiatives will only strengthen. And in that respect, the various initiatives that the ECBC and Luca with his team have taken over time to add that as to the scala of initiatives. And the work that have done in that respect, it will only be more important going forward. linked to cover bonds, linked green cover bonds, all the green initiatives. I think it will only be more and more important over time.
Okay, Luca?
Yes, I mean, I will agree with Bodwin. I mean, the long-term perspective is still climate change, so the agenda in the medium long term remains the same. And I think this is the spirit of the next generation package put forward by the European Commission, which includes the Green Deal, the recovery. So this COVID crisis should be seen as a way to achieve the long-term target, which is bringing Europe to a new green track and designing completely a new economical paradigm that should be put in place. I think we are integral part of this. Capital markets is always the most active and the first sector in the economy to get changes. And I think the financial services can really help in scaling up the business case for energy efficiency, but also in the green economy in general. So we are a linking element between long-term investor base and the real market. So I think that by nature, we are the first place where these discussions should take place, and we should put together a box of tools to be provided to the European Commission to make the capital markets greener. I think that's our role, and we are trying to do this. I think that the European mortgage initiative on energy efficiency is, I would say, a key driver, but also the European secure notes, because I mean, European secure notes make sense if we are speaking about green SME, if we are speaking about green facilities. So we have put a lot of options on the table, and I think the Commission have taken this and has said, we are working on this, we want to work together with you. So we are fully committed to this, I would say, action plan.
You mentioned the word renaissance earlier. So would you expect to see a renaissance of ESNs at all because of this?
I think so. I think that, in the Renaissance, the financial markets provided by the Dutch or by the people from Florence was one of the key elements. I mean, who was financing the Renaissance? It was the capital markets. I mean, the Medici were one of the major maker of the Renaissance, and that was done with the banking sector, with a new common currency, which was the Fiorino. I think that you cannot have a Renaissance without a good labor market, without a good common currency, and with a vibrant financial markets. We have a euro. We have a labor market is changing, and we have a pretty strong, solid financial services industry ready to apply changes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With everything else going on, is it easy to overlook the implementation of the covered bond directive? Are we still on track? Will we get some respite to that tight transposition deadline? Luca?
Well,
I don't mind.
I think that officially we are still on track. Now I think that the 15th of September is the deadline for member states to provide the feedback to the European Commission with the initial survey on transposition. At the end of September, the Commission will try to see what is the situation in the different 27 countries of the Union. Officially, the deadline is still absolutely in place. Of course, it's one of the most challenging years of the European Union. So, I mean, let's see. I mean, I will not bet money that there are no modifications on the timeline, of course. But officially, I mean, the horizon that we have are still the one identified by the publication of the.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I think they're still on time. But on the other hand, I think in terms of priorities compared to more urgent projects, it's not maybe on the top of everybody's priorities at the moment. So it may slip. We'll see. But at the moment, I don't think we'll see how it pans out. But then even if it comes a bit later, it's still a trend and an initiative that will continue to happen.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed. It's been thoroughly interesting and I hope useful to our audience. And if I might just say, also thank you for lending the support of the ECBC to this virtual event. I hope you both enjoy the next couple of days. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we quickly move on to our next keynote speaker, Martin Merlin of the European Commission, where he is Director, Bank Insurance and Financial Crime. Thank you.